Welcome back to Birds Within, where we talk about birds. I've been sitting on that for days because this has a bird in the title. And I was showering today and I was like, oh my God, Ash is going to lose it. So when you said, can you do the intros? I was like, mm-hmm.
I was like, what is happening right now? Because it didn't register right away. I was like, do you, what?
Okay. Welcome back to Worlds Within, where story becomes space. We're your hosts, Alyssa and Ash, and every episode we explore fictional worlds that don't just live on the page. They pull you in, build themselves around you, and let you wander through them. This is a podcast for readers who don't just love books, they live in them. We dive deep into sensory storytelling, character perspectives, and the world-building mechanics that turn fiction into a fully immersive experience. Today, we are at the edge of the Russian wilderness and diving into a world of folklore in The Bear and the Nightingale by Katherine Arden. This is continuing our Frozen Realms theme for Season 2, so grab something warm and let's wander in.
We'll start each episode with a plot teaser. We've made a cuppa to match the book and read the synopsis. Fair warning, we will discuss some spoilers in the book throughout the show. So now's the time to pause.
See you later.
If you don't want to have any spoilers. Today, we have a honey vanilla chamomile tea. We thought about having mead, given how often it is mentioned in the book, but landed on this cozy and comforting tea with its nod to honey instead.
I wish we could have had mead.
We could
or
have.
Broth.
But then it's not a plot teaser. It's a plot brother. Meader.
Sorry.
We are on one today, y'all. All right, let's dive into the synopsis. Winter lasts most of the year at the edge of the Russian wilderness, and in the long nights, Vasilia and her siblings love to gather by the fire to listen to their nurses' fairy tales. Above all, Vasya loves the story of Frost, the blue-eyed winter demon. Wise Russians fear him, for he claims unwary souls, and they honor the spirits that protect their home from evil. Then Vasya's widowed father brings home a new wife from Moscow. Fiercely devout, Vasya's stepmother forbids her family from honoring their household spirits. But Vasya fears what this may bring, and indeed, misfortune begins to stalk the village. But Vasya's stepmother only grows harsher, determined to remake the village to her liking and to groom her rebellious stepdaughter for marriage or a convent. As the village's defenses weaken and evil from the forest creeps nearer, Vasilia must call upon dangerous gifts she has long concealed to protect her family from a threat sprung to life from her nurse's most frightening tales.
I don't think I had read the synopsis going into this book because this doesn't seem to capture what I felt the true story was.
I agree. And I know that I did because I was very anything that you had submitted in our lists, I wanted to actually read it or get an idea. Not to judge a book by its cover, but I feel like a synopsis is a little bit
that's
deeper.
The purpose.
That's the purpose.
Yeah.
But I don't remember that because that was so far before actually reading it. But I also don't feel like that's a good representation of what you get. There's some things that are misleading, and also it just does not capture the depth of the story.
No, and also a little spoilery.
A little.
Of the household spirits.
Yeah. A little.
Anyway.
I feel like you get those pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
I had never heard of this book. Again, this feels like a sub theme for this season is never heard of her.
Surprises.
Surprise, this is a book. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, let's read it.
Thank goodness.
But one of the things that I did like about it when we were selecting is I went through a phase when I was younger where I was obsessed with historical fiction and specifically with the Romanovs. And so picking this felt very very familiar for me and cozy in that familiar way. So that was why I was excited about it.
Yeah. I also had never heard of or read this But when I was reading online and putting together the list of like, here are what I think would work for Frozen Realms for this season, just the opening part of that winter lasts most of the year in the edge of the Russian wilderness, I was like, yeah, I'm in. I've dabbled in historical fiction, but it's not been a genre that I stick around in very long. So I was really curious to see how historical fantasy would work. And I'm so glad that we had an opportunity to read this one for the pod.
So tell me about your first impressions of the story.
Cool. So honestly, it took me a little bit to get into. I think I was spending a lot of mental time early on trying to pronounce the Russian names correctly. More than anything else, like more than trying to like get a sense of place or space or anything like that. I was like, how do I pronounce these? Because I want to get it right, especially knowing I have to talk about it later. But then as I continued to read and those kind of settled in, I too settled into the world and to the story. But every time I had to stop reading and kind of live life and come back to it, I would pause and need to arrive. It wasn't like a fully, like I opened the door and I walked right through it. I had to like slowly get into it and arrive in this world. So I don't know, interesting, but unexpected and maybe a little challenging, but in a good way.
I can get behind that. I very much loved, still love like that historical fiction and around this area and what I would assume is close to this time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was very familiar. But it had very familiar elements of like a classic fairy tale, like Hans Christian Andersen, Brothers Grimm, which is a different level of familiarity. Yeah. And so while I liked stepping into both of those, sometimes they were also at odds because you have like, again, the historical fiction aspect, which is very much rooted in reality.
Yeah.
And then you have this folklore, which is very much not. And like, so sometimes I couldn't reconcile those two familiar places at the same time. But I did very much enjoy being in there. So,
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about how Arden built this world or what she used to pull us in. So the first is that we're using real Russian history and language. Like we've time traveled to 14th century Russia, which I appreciated. Like it really felt like we were given a distinct time period and place. I think previously in other books like Quicksilver or thinking back to In the Veins of the Drowning, we're like, we could be anywhere and at any time. Like we don't really know, but this is very distinct. We get a lot of historical clues like the Orthodox Christianity at odds with like this rooted paganism that is still happening in Vasya's village or town. We get nods to some skirmishes and pressure between the Mongol Tatar, like things that are happening in the background. But even like the architecture descriptions or the clothing, the family and the political structures, like all of that really helped me feel like, oh, I'm in a distinct time and place. And that made it really grounded for me.
And there are very distinct differences that are, again, very accurate between I am in this northern village, like with this lord and his people versus I am in Moscow and like the palace there and the market there, like they were very distinct and separate places. And I could distinguish between the two of them.
For sure. I did not have a fascination with the Romanovs or Russian history, unlike you. So I knew very little about it, but I really I felt like I learned something throughout this book, which I didn't expect at all, especially with, I think, fantasy in general. It's like, yeah. It's like a mystical place, but this being so grounded in something real, right? We're not creating a new world, but like adding on to a true one. I just really liked that. And it was solid and real enough that when the domovoi showed up asking for some breadcrumbs, I was like, yeah, of course that feels right. That feels right at home.
Yeah. I was with you though on the names. Because it's not just like her name is Vasilia. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I'm going with for the pronunciation. Vasya. But then she was Vasya, and then also like she had another like another nickname or term of endearment. And like her brother, the youngest of her brothers.
Never
like,
knew how to pronounce that one.
I like Alyosha.
Alosha?
But like that's not even his name is Alexander.
Yeah.
But like there's like two versions of his name that are terms of endearment and like their levels of endearment.
Yeah. I thought that was a little confusing. Like I had heard ones before, like Devochka or before, right?
Yeah.
Just like in pop culture and culture in general. But other ones like Vedma, they refer to her as Vedma, which is Russian for witch, which I really loved. And I was like, oh, I don't know what that means. Or what was the other one? I can't think of it. But you're right. All of those, I was like, I don't really know how to say these things, or I have like a fringe understanding of what they are.
But also there's so many and it's like they're used so interchangeably. And I'm like, wait, are we talking about the same person?
Right.
Like, okay, you are still, this is all one person that you are talking about, even though you have changed the name that you've used 3 or 4 times in this monologue.
Yes.
That got confusing.
Yes. A little bit.
But once I got a handle on, it's like these are all the same.
Yeah.
Then it was fine.
For sure. I think that helped stay like the Russian like actual history and culture was grounded in that way so that we could get a little confused but feel like we still had solid footing. And then, like I said, the introduction of the domovoi felt like natural enough to me because another device that we use here is that folklore is truth, right? So we get Dunya's story early on and then rewatch it come to life throughout the rest of the book, which I thought was really beautiful and set the tone for me. And it gave us something to recall back to as the story continued to progress, which I liked. To be like, oh yeah, like Dunya did say that when they were laying on top of the oven and telling the story of Morozko and the frost demon and all of that. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. And I think we get a very wide variety of these spirits. And I love that she tries to have at one point this very intellectual and philosophical conversation with the domovoi. And she's like, well, where did you come from? And he's like, I was here. Like the house came to being and I came to being. Like I am the house.
Yeah.
And the house is me. Well, where would you go if the house burned down? Nowhere. I am like
I am the house.
I am the house.
Yeah.
And like, but we get him, and then we get the Vasila
in the stable.
Yeah, in the stable. And I think arguably my favorite is the Rusalka.
I knew it would be
because
her hair that has to stay wet.
Her hair that has to stay wet. She has a magic comb that keeps it wet.
Right.
But like, there are elements of each of these spirits that are present in other folklore and other like pagan religions, I guess, or whatever. But like the Rusalka very much harkens to like other characters we've seen, like the sirens and stuff like that. And I just thought that was fascinating.
Or like the domovoi as a brownie. Yeah. Right? Thinking like, how would Emily Wilde put all of these in her encyclopedia of fairies?
Exactly.
One of my favorite parts is when Vasya is in the stables and she comes across the Vasila the first time, or however you pronounce it. And she's like, well, are you like the domovoi? And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she's like, well, he looks like this and he's got a tail. And it's described that the Vasila is like trying to turn around to see, like, do I have a tail? Like, it gave very like Good Burger, you better watch your butt, man. Like, oh yeah, like, do I have a tail? Just like that little bit of humor in there was so nice. And I really loved throughout, right? Like the domovoi just exists in the house. And it was hard to have a, like, where did you come from? Where would you go? But Morozko is very much the same. Like, I am only a story. I am real here, but I am only a story. And just a really interesting way to describe himself and his sense of being. I don't know. I liked that.
It gives very much like, there are many stories of like that gods die when we stop honoring them or stop talking about them, but also the idea that like we as people, we live on in the stories that are told about us, and that we die a second death when someone stops saying our name,
Right.
or stops talking about us.
That's like a thesis of this book.
And that is, and it feels very, because like basically by the end, she is keeping the Sherti.
Sure.
That's what I'm going to go with. That's what I said in my head. She is keeping them alive.
Yes.
I mean, literally by her blood at the end, but
Yeah.
like she is the only one honoring and feeding them, and therefore giving them life.
Yeah.
And I just think it's so sad and so beautiful.
Yeah. I think many times too, they say like, do not forget me. You know, when you leave, like they knew Vasya was going to leave and go on this journey. And they all said, like all of the spirits that she encountered, like, don't forget me. Because in the end, like she really needed them and didn't forget them. But that central tension, right, between like Constantine coming in with his Orthodox Christianity and trying to stop everybody from honoring or offering to these spirits. And then we see the consequence of that, right? It's not like good versus evil. It's old versus new. And things fade when they're neglected. One of the notes I put here is I also let things go to hell when I'm not fed. I do, though.
I mean, yeah. Well.
Yeah, but it's that loss, like you said, if like things die, we die a second death when nobody says our name again after we've physically passed. But here we're seeing like a loss of community and a loss of community knowledge and stories and ritual, and then the woods suddenly no longer lasting as long as it used to. The winter is harder and harsher, and we're seeing more of these consequences come in as people forget.
Well, and one of the things I appreciated from the beginning is it wasn't, and in this smaller village, it wasn't Christianity versus the old gods. They were blended.
Right. They
were devout and God-fearing of like the Christian God. Mm-hmm. And they went to church and they participated and they believed that was true. And they didn't see their like the paganism portion as wrong, or honestly, they didn't even see it as religious.
Yeah.
It was just
the way things
are.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we do, and it's going like but that's why I think it was so easy when they were told to stop, for them to stop, because they didn't see it there being a consequence. Mm-hmm. It was just, this is a thing that we do. Mm-hmm. Because even Dunya like was taking towards the end was taking the sun symbols out of her, like they were just symbols to her, like they were just beautiful things, but then she was being shamed for having them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I did think that was interesting initially, and then to see the conversion towards the end.
One of my favorite parts of kind of this tension, especially as Constantine grows in presence in the village, is when Vasya brought the crickets to church and said, "Did not God make all creatures? Why should we alone be allowed to raise our voices in praise? Crickets worship with songs as much as we." And kind of that, what you said, yes, they are Christian and they are going to church. And also, like, the crickets are singing too, so why couldn't they be here?
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of really beautiful, like, I think, like as you said, tension, but also just illustration of the dichotomy between the two.
For sure.
And of, like, overzealous religion.
Yes. Another thing that Arden does is the weather and environment is part of the world building. And right in line with our theme of Frozen Realms, we see the consequences and the threat that winter is to this village. And we do get all of the seasons in this book, as it does span quite a few years. We see Vasya grow grow up to what, like 17, 18 in the end. But we focus on the brutality of winter and how the weather changes, and how winter escalates as Vasya's village turns further away from their pagan rituals, right? We get quotes like the remorseless winter, the bone-chilling wind, or like I mentioned earlier, how the firewood starts burning quicker and quicker and people are cold and we have a young child dying from the cold. And it's truly a threat, not like this glittering, fun let's go romp in the snow.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, like this has real consequence.
Yeah. And like being in this remote village and being farther north, they see those consequences more rapidly, and more directly. But you pulled this one that the forest in
Lesnaya
Zemlya was not like the forest around Moscow. It was wilder and crueler and fairer. And I think that's interesting that you would put fairer with those other two.
I agree.
But like it makes sense when you look at like Moscow is more Christian. And while obviously we know through Anna that there are still household spirits, that they are not as important,
honored.
They're acknowledged, like they are obviously acknowledged to some degree, but like they are not as present as they are in like Vasya's village. And so there is more care given from those spirits, which makes it a little bit fairer. So
we've talked through the kind of main pieces or ways that Arden builds this world, right? She's dropping us right into real Russian history, which gives us a really grounded sense of place and time. She's adding in folklore as being truth into this world. We're using weather and environment as kind of an additional piece to the world building and raising the stakes throughout this. And she writes it all in a very lyrical storytelling, maybe old-fashioned way of writing. I think about Emily Wilde and how we mentioned like the way that it is written helps build the world. Very much the same with The Bear and the Nightingale, right? It was sometimes, like I mentioned, challenging, but in a good way to drop back into this maybe slower style of writing, and just the language and the very lyrical, prosy way things were written.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think I mentioned in my first impressions, it's very Hans Christian Andersen, Brothers Grimm. Like the story, like it's almost like at the beginning when Dunya's telling that story, it's almost like she never stops.
Yes.
Because
that's really good.
Because the way it's written is very much of that vein.
There's the continuation of this story, right? I want to talk about our characters a little bit more, actually, because you brought up somebody who I had a real challenge with Anna. I simultaneously had a lot of empathy for her and hated her, right? She takes on this evil stepmother kind of role in Vasya's life, but also she has the same power of seeing that Vasya does, and so sees the house spirits and has seen them, but thinks of them as demons. And that troubles her so much because she is so devout, right? And she wants to be free of this sight. And so I had so much empathy for her. But I also hated her so much when she was like, yeah, send her to the convent. And like, yeah, let's go have her marry this guy. Like, I don't care if he's a bad guy either. Like, get her out of this house because the spirits will leave with her.
Well, and she, like, obviously her choice was all taken from her. She didn't want to be married.
Yes.
She wanted to go to a convent.
Right.
She wanted to be like just left alone. And she had that choice taken away from her, but also she again grew up in Moscow where it was more at this point Christian focused.
Yep.
And so like, yeah, like one, they see her as mentally ill. You're seeing things, girl, bye.
Right.
Like you are an embarrassment. But also like, of course, whatever she's seeing is a demon. Like it's not, why would it be these
a house spirit? Yeah,
like,
it would never be them. So
like she was raised to be ashamed of what she saw, whereas Vasya was not. I mean, her mom, like that was what she wanted for her, was to be blessed in this way.
That. This is my daughter.
This is my daughter, and I want her. I've wanted her, and I want her still.
Yeah.
And like I want her to be like my mother. And so she was raised to be proud of what and who she was. And so I that's where the empathy comes in for Anna, is like, okay, I get it. Like you were kind of dealt a poor hand in this, and you still chose to be an absolute nightmare.
Horrible person. I really like Vasya, actually.
Yes.
And I like that we got to see her grow up through this book, right? She's very strong-willed. She is very confident, even though people are like, you kind of look like a frog, and like, you're a witch. And she's like, don't care. I'm awesome. Screw you guys. And she really wants to exercise the autonomy of choice, right? She says that the paths for her as a woman in this world are a cage either way, a cage in marriage or a cage in convent. And she doesn't want either of those. And she's like, why can't I do my own thing?
I want to learn how to shoot a bow and arrow. I want to learn how to wield this.
The horses taught me to ride.
Yeah.
Which I love.
I was going to say that tickled so many horse girl things for you, didn't it?
Oh my God, so many. I skipped my earlier note about the fact that a bird turns into a horse. That's my dream. Ash is over here being like, I would like to be a mermaid or maybe a vampire or maybe this. And I studied Russian history and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, guys, this bird though, he turned into a horse who was also very sweet horse.
And they taught her how to ride them.
Yes. I really like the women in this book and the way that the characters themselves help build the world, right? They're adding to that sense of time and like the gender roles and the rules around men and women and family and politics. Another strong woman we see in this book is Dunya, who is Vasya's nurse or caretaker. She's the storyteller of the family. She's taking care of everybody. Her voice is described frequently because she's always telling these stories, right? It creaked like a calling raven, or she has a rich, precise voice. And then it turns near the end where she comes back as essentially a vampire.
Yeah.
A zombie vampire. And it was chilling to read.
Yeah.
To have built so much love and relationship and see that, like, Dunya was a stand-in mother for Vasya growing up. And then Vasya has to come face to face with Dunya as a ghoul.
Well, and like you put, like, she's a stand-in mother, she's a caretaker, she, does all these things, and she literally stands between Morozko and Vasilia for a long time, like I think almost a decade.
Yeah.
That she holds onto that talisman. And but what I also really loved, and this kind of goes back also to Emily Wilde, and again, this is a historical thing that you see in many cultures, but the idea of an elder storyteller who is like the wise woman.
Yeah.
And even the men treat her as such. Like, there are times when they're dismissive because, well, you're just a woman.
Right.
But like,
Dunya takes care of my house.
Dunya takes care of my house, and Dunya has stories that, and whether they are true or false, like fable or not, they are wise. And there are lessons to be learned, and those lessons are important.
And then we have the men. I pulled out 3, which I think were the big 3. We've got Vasya's dad, Peter, essentially, right? He is truly representative of a man of this time. He has honor, he's strong, he's dutiful, he truly loved Vasya's mother, right? His whole job is to provide, protect, and kind of pretend that everything's okay until the final oh shit moments happen and he is called into action because of his sense of duty. And I really, I enjoyed his character and thought it was a necessary piece to the world, especially as he brought like Anna home and was like, well, I have to remarry, like it's time, and I'm going to marry Olga off too. Like, we're going to go, and we're going to go to Moscow, and this is our goal. I'm going to find a wife, and Olga, I'll probably find something for you too. And I just liked his sense of duty as a father.
Well, and we often see like men of this kind being very dismissive and being very like unkind. And I will say one thing I liked about him is he was not unkind. Like as much as he could, he humored. Like even when he didn't understand, he acknowledged that like just because I don't understand doesn't mean there's something wrong with Vasya. He does get he does get annoyed eventually, but it's not because he is, it's because Anna is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when like he started he's old.
Right.
He's like, okay, I've probably
I've
humored
let
this too long.
Yeah, go on too long.
Because now other people are starting to notice, and there are things that are what they are, and she has to kind of fall in line.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't like it at all. Like he very much is like, I wish it didn't have to be this way. And I loved that because it's so not normal for what we see for men of his type in a book like this or a story like this.
Another guy, I'm not even going to call him a man. He annoys me so much.
A human, a male.
It's Constantine, right? So Constantine comes to, or is rather sent to this village. He's a fantastic artist. He paints all the icons. He is a priest or whatever. But he really is just there to gain a sense of control. Gross. Yeah, gross. I did like, though, that he could sense a spirit was in his room and he thought it was God. And then we find out it is definitely not God.
The way he covets Vasya.
Gross.
And hates himself for it was very and now I'm going to forget his name, but Hunchback of Notre Dame, the priest with Esmeralda.
Yeah.
I was like, you want her, but you want to cage her.
Yep.
And you hate that you want her because you know that you shouldn't.
Yeah. And then Vasya goes and saves his life.
More than once.
Ugh. And then the final guy we'll talk about is Morozko, who is magical. If not a demon, he's a frost demon.
Yeah.
But he's a nicer demon.
But like,
maybe.
I mean, but demon in the sense that he is a spirit or he is other.
Yeah.
I would not, like, he's not evil.
No. No, he's not evil. But he is magical.
Yes.
There were some liberties here. So this is a true retelling of some Russian folklore. However, in our story here for The Bear and the Nightingale, he is both the Death and Winter King, which is some artistic liberty that Arden has taken. But I really appreciated how much he cared for Vasya in times of need. And I think I highlighted the passage where he had left Vasya in his magical house that was in the trees, but not in the trees. That was a tree, but wasn't a tree. Oh, it was great. And went out to go collect the snowdrops for her. I think I highlighted it and wrote swoon-worthy because it really is. Because Vasya was sent on this impossible task by Anna. Like, yeah, you can come back and I won't send you to the convent if you can collect a basket full of snowdrops, which wouldn't have been possible because it was the dead of winter. So Vasya freezes, yada, yada. And Morozko goes and he finds them for her so that she can return home and not go to the convent. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet winter guy.
There was a lot to love about him.
Yeah.
Because, like, he would, like, there were things about him that were, like, brusque and that were harsh, but they weren't harsh out of cruelty. They were just harsh out of, like, not knowing how to interact with someone else.
Being a winter king.
Yeah. Like, you are alone. You are death. Like, no one wants to walk with death.
No.
So.
I really liked his character and I want more of him. So maybe I'll have to read the next two books.
I was going to say, thankfully there are 2 more books.
Yeah.
So.
I do want to go back a little bit out of order, though, to talk about the sensory immersion of some of this, because we get some really good pieces in passageways, right? Yeah. A lot of descriptions on food in this book, which I loved, right? The whole house smelled of honey. There's lots of warm broth and mead. And then even before then, it's black bread and fermented cabbage. Like, food is really central, and you see how that ebbs and flows throughout the seasons, as well as like the prolonging of these winters. Like, I really just loved it. We don't often get a lot of food descriptions, but we did here.
Yeah, you have me when she, towards like the beginning, when Dunya is pulling the cakes out of the coals.
Yeah.
And then like the honey cakes. And I was like, oh, Like that, I could taste that. Like
Mhm.
when Vasia's like shoving them in her mouth
And like
I'm
steals another one and runs out the door.
yeah, like I could taste those,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, I really want some of these.
Yeah. We got to make those.
Yeah, we should.
And then we get a lot because winter is so central, right? We get the first screaming winds of November, or the snow hurried down like tears. The cold air sank fangs into her flesh. Like it's threatening, right? It's not this soft, gentle winter. It's something to be feared.
Well, and it's not, again, we've talked about this a couple of times now, but the personification that like winter, it's not just Morosco, like winter in and of itself is an entity. It is a being. And like it's coming for you.
Speaking of Morosco, they described his eyes as pale, pale blue, like a clear sky in a cold day. And his voice was like snow at midnight. How gentle is that in comparison to the harsh, anthropomorphized winter that has fangs and is coming for you?
Which feels very in line with like the bear, which is his brother. And so like that duality of like winter is embodied in these two beings. I thought that was fascinating.
There are a couple of poll quotes I wanted to share that I didn't really have a place for, but I just loved them so much. And to me, added to the world and my understanding of this world. The first is be of good heart, which is just could be a tattoo, right? Be of good heart. I really, really loved that. Second, this is when Constantine is talking to Anna and she's like, I want you to see me. Like, please, like, notice me, pick me, choose me, love me, kind of thing. And he turns to her and says, I see you, but Anna Ivanovna, there is little to see. Oh, what a burn. There is little to see.
I also highlighted that. I was like, ouch.
Yeah. Ugh. And the last one is something Vasia says right near the end of the book. I think she's saying it to her brother as Anna sent her away to go collect the snowdrops. And she says, if this is the last decision I can ever make, at least it is my decision. I am not afraid. And I was like, she's a queen.
I know you haven't read it yet, but that line feels very Throne of Glass.
I knew it.
And I hope that you one day make it to that series because I think you would love it.
We'll see. Before we get to portal moments, any final thoughts?
No, my final thought is my portal moment.
Okay.
And we're gonna dissect some things.
Okay. Buckle up, y'all. As you know, at the end of every episode, we talk about our peak portal moment. I'm tripping over all my words.
It's okay.
At the end of every episode, we talk about our peak portal moment, the moment in the book where we felt the most immersed, the most pulled in, where the world was the biggest and took up the most space. And Ash is chomping at the bit to tell us hers.
So this honestly made it really difficult for me. I have loosely mentioned this, but I have some religious trauma. And like was low key, like there were some culty aspects of religion in my life prior to the age of 18. And so like reading his very first sermon, Constantine's very first sermon, when he like comes to the village and he's like realizing like this is what I meant to do, is save this village. And like the way that Arden describes, like you can like feel and see the shift of everyone but Vasya, basically. And like how that then manifests in the rest of the book. And between that one and then his, I would like argue his final sermon when the bear like manifests and Anna is screaming. Those two scenes were very, very hard for me because I know what that feeling is. I've sat in those sermons where someone is talking of fire and brimstone and how you're gonna go to hell because you're doing something wrong. And like it was palpable. I felt like I was 18 again. Yeah. I was, it was very, very difficult to like get through because I felt so viscerally those moments. So yeah, that, I put religious trauma at its peak.
Yikes, dude. Those were serious moments too, because I think in one of them he had finished painting all of the icons. And so he was like standing in front of his own glory too, of like, look how freaking good I am. Of course you're going to listen to me.
And then the bear like manifesting in the face of Christ.
Horrifying.
Oh my God. Yeah,
horrifying. And then just like the absolute chaos that erupted after that.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So big moments.
Mine is also a chaotic moment, but you alluded to me being a little bit of a horse girl, and shock and awe, my portal moment here relates to the horses. As Anna has said, Vasi, you either have to go to a convent or you have to get married. This guy comes to their village and she is supposed to be like courting him, and he comes from a family of horse trainers. He rides this horse called Ogon, who is just beautiful and impossibly fast and a menace, right? He's a hard horse.
Because he's still a colt.
Right. He's a baby. But at one point, the men go out for a hunt and the women eventually join, and Vasia's nephew jumps on the back of Mish, who is Vasia's horse, I think an old broodmare that they've had forever. And Mish takes off with her nephew on his back. And Vasia has to ride on Ogon to go save her nephew, a horse who she should not be able to ride, right? But she exudes just this strength, this determination, you feel the threat that her family is unsafe, and she is a wild, feral woman doing what needs to be done to save her nephew, despite not being allowed to do that, right? She's supposed to be putting on a good face, a womanly role to kind of court this man in the company of her betrothed and like his family and his whole posse, thank you. I wanted to say brood, but that's not it. This whole posse that shows up, and she messes everything up in that marriage by riding this horse. But she saves her nephew, and she's like, I really don't care. Like, look what I was able to do, and not just ride Ogon, but also calm Mish down, which incredible horse girl energy. She's just so strong in that moment and capable. And then when she asks Mish, why did you take off? Why did you take off like that? Like, that's so unlike you. Mish tells her, I saw a shadow and it had teeth. And it was like, oh, shit. Okay, that's fair. I would totally understand why that horse would take off. But I just loved Vasia's, like, I don't give a F attitude because my nephew's in trouble and I know I'm capable of saving him, and just watch me do it.
Yeah.
Oh, loved it.
Well, and even Peter, like, he's upset that the marriage falls through, but he thanks her. He says, thank you for my grandson.
Yeah.
Thank you. You have saved him. He is safe because of you.
Right. And also, how dare you?
And also, how
you
very
embarrassed
dare you?
him. You embarrassed your betrothed.
And you embarrassed your family. Because, like, you're wild, and nobody wants somebody who's more wood sprite than woman.
That's right. Anyway, I think that's a wrap on this episode.
Well, before we go, let's give The Bear and the Nightingale our immersion rating on a scale of 1 to 10 portals.
Alrighty. I think I'm going to go with a solid 7.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go 7 out of 10 portals, mostly because it would take me a minute to arrive back in this world. Once I kind of got through kind of the restart every time you take a break from reading, I was very happy to be in this place and really loved it and didn't want to come out of it. So while I felt immersed, and I think there were a lot of things that worked really well, right? The groundedness of the actual Russian history, this layer of folklore, the strength of women and choices or the lack of choices, it didn't immediately pull me in and keep me there. That's why it's a 7, because it took me some time to fully arrive each time.
So I was going to go with a 6, and for a similar reason, but it was more, while I could get in, there was a constant tension between the historic and the folklore that I couldn't get past and reconcile. And I don't know why. Like, why those were so at odds for me in this book where they were not in like Emily Wilde.
Yeah.
But I felt, I think it's because I had two reference points of familiarity that are very, very different.
And like distinct and separate in your mind.
Exactly.
Already. Yeah.
And so then trying to blend them just didn't work for me for some reason. Again, once I was in there, I was there. I wanted to keep reading.
Yeah.
But there was just that tension in the back of my brain that was kind of like, wait a minute. These things don't go together.
These don't line up.
So
that's totally fair. Do you think you'll read the next two?
I do think I would like to, because the way it ended left me wanting more.
Yeah, I agree.
And I will say that I think towards the end, like once she leaves to go get the snowdrops, from there on, a lot of that tension like started to fade because we leaned more into the folklore. So I'm interested to see if that continues into the next book.
Yeah. I'm excited to read the next two. I think I need to carve them out and sit down and like dedicate time to them, because I would expect them written very similarly and that arrival experience to be true for me in the next two. But I do want to continue to see how Vasi just continues to be this wild, feral, strong woman.
Witchy wood sprite.
We love her. Well, thanks y'all for wandering the snowy wilderness of the Bear and the Nightingale with us, where Winter had a personality and a really great sort of house, but also not a house. These spirits just wanted snacks, and absolutely no one, not even us, was prepared for Vasia's level of main character energy. She will not be caged. And there's two more in this Winter Night trilogy, so really curious to see how it continues.
Next up, we are sliding straight into Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. It's another glittering, frostbitten tale with moneylenders, fairy courts, impossible bargains, and one girl who said, fine, I'll do it myself, and accidentally caught the attention of a winter king.
Oops.
Until then, stay warm, stay curious, and follow us on TikTok and Instagram, and tell us where story became space for you.
Bye.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Worlds Within, where story becomes space. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Worlds Within Pod for more episodes, sensory guides to your favorite books, and more.
And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast streaming platform. Bye.